Hey, no whispering. No whispering up there. Keep us all informed. Come on.
We're talking about weekend plans, holiday party plans.
Okay.
All right, well, we are going to go ahead and get started. I am Liz Hermansky, and this is Christy Shriver. We are with the Crawford team at VIP Mortgage. So we are one of the power partners here. I've been a power partner for 4 years, and we are not going to get up here and stand and tell you how amazing we are the whole class. We are here to teach you some things. So today we're going to talk a lot about condos. We know that agents oftentimes run into a lot of issues with condos and are confused on some of the guidelines with condos. So we're going to go into that in depth, and then we're going to kind of open it up at the end for other lending questions you may have. Just put us on the spot and we'll address them. First though, I want to get an idea of what you guys know about condos or want to know about condos. So what questions do you have, or problems have you encountered, so that we can make sure to address what you guys want to hear.
Whether they're FHA approved.
Perfect, okay.
And what that means and why a lot of them will be, and then they let it expire and don't do it, you know.
We will definitely talk about that. What else?
Yeah, the HOA prices, you know.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, a little bit. And why they have two of them sometimes. I mean, I know why, but why? You know.
Perfect. Anyone else?
I haven't had too much issues with condos, so I was curious on what could come up.
Oh, there's a lot.
Like the lending and finance stuff, condos, it's kind of always an issue that comes up.
Yes, there's a lot of, hi Neil.
See, what we
I'm
want
sorry.
to cover is,
You look amazing. He said.
Oh, no, he was asking me how I'm feeling. I got injured about a week ago, and
Well.
I'm still injured, but I'm here. Okay, so, yeah, so lending, like maybe what potential problems could come up, kind of, is that maybe what you're saying? Like,
Yeah.
why are there, okay.
Like I know CCNRs get kind of strict with condos and stuff.
So.
And is it just condos, or what about townhome?
Uh-huh.
Kind of the same, like owner occupant stuff, I know that's always an issue too.
Versus
Okay.
rentals?
Like,
Okay.
you can't rent, but, you know.
All right.
I'd like to do.
yeah, short-term rentals, you know.
Short term?
That's always like HOA.
They're cracking down on those.
Yeah, they are going to
Airbnb,
everywhere.
yeah.
A lot of counties that outlaw them, not
Yeah.
so much in Arizona, but all over California, whole cities and
Yeah.
counties are outlawing them.
Also, condo conversions, there are a lot of rentals out there, so at some point, there's gonna be explosion in condos, they're gonna convert.
Well, we already had that, remember? That would happen with all the apartment complexes in the boom. Well, a while ago, everything turned into condos, and then there was no apartments for a long time. What else? Any other questions or topics you wanna make sure we touch on? Yes, ma'am?
Just representing a buyer with, new construction and how you can protect them when the developer writes the contract.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, we are going to talk about all that. We'll definitely, I think we'll get to all of it. If not, we'll make sure at the end of the question part to address them. But we're going to get started here. And we want this to be interactive, so feel free to stop us, interrupt. I'm going to let Christy talk about a lot of the lending guidelines. So I do business development for our team. I am a licensed loan officer, but I do not originate loans. Christy and 3 other senior mortgage bankers on our team do that. I teach classes, help educate our realtor partners, try to stay up on marketing trends. And Christy is at the desk doing discovery calls every single day to help our buyers. So our team on average, we get about 7 we do 7 discovery calls a day, typically. So we deal with a lot of buyers all over town. So we've heard most things at this point. So we'll give you some good insight today, especially on condos. So we'll go ahead. All right, so first slide, why should you care about condos? And I guess you guys all already do because you're here, so that's a good thing. And I'm gonna sit for most of the time because I'm a little sore still. But basically, and this is about a month old, but as of about a month ago, so I'm sorry I didn't get an updated stat, there was 2,065 condo, townhome, loft active listings in the MLS. That is a huge chunk. And there was, at that point, 16,738 total listings in our list. I think it's up to about 18,000 now, so we've gone up a little bit in inventory. But still, at this point, it was 1 out of every 8 listings in the MLS was a condo listing at that point in time. So that's a huge chunk of our market share that you obviously need to understand if you wanna sell that segment of the market. And in Maricopa County, according to the Maricopa County assessor, there is 181,333 condos in Maricopa County with a median value of $120,700. And those have gone up 10% in value as far as median value from 2017. So condos are a great place that investors live because of the appreciation year over year. So that's, oh, I almost tipped.
Don't need that. Oh, you know what, you're on the.
I'm on the thing, that's why. Okay, sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm like, I don't want to injure myself again. Okay. So definitely, you know, there's 181,000 properties that fall under the categories we're going to talk about today. And somebody had this question, what's the difference between a condo and a townhome? So we're going to open this up to you guys here. What do you think the difference between a condo and a townhome is?
The townhouse, nobody's above you or below you.
So that's what most people think, right?
Yeah.
I've heard that answer a lot, and I've heard like, oh, it has a patio in the back. You know, I've heard that for townhomes too. Or it only shares one wall. Or, you know, I've heard all sorts of different things. What else? What do you?
I remember learning about it in real estate school, but now I don't remember.
Okay.
But it does have to do with
Don't you own the lot or?
vertical versus horizontal or
That's
something?
it. You hit the point right there, there's a few
Okay.
things to look at, so that's one,
What was
there's three
it?
major things to look at,
So
so,
you own the lot
right.
on a townhome.
Right. So we're looking
Okay.
at a legal description, for a condo. Typically in a legal, a condo is gonna mention the word unit and not the word lot. So the first tip when we're looking into public records, last warranty deed, we always vet a few things up front, the warranty related process to see if it's a condo or not. One thing is does it say unit? Most likely it's a condo, because you own the space around you. If it designates a lot, you own the land.
That's what it was. It was the space around you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's the
Yeah.
ownership different, not the structure.
It is. So mostly, you're exactly right. So it's the legal description that's different, not necessarily the structural arrangement always. And that's what's so confusing for most people is they only go off of the structural description
Right.
versus the legal description.
And 9 times out of 10, what's posted on Zillow or on the listing is incorrect. Oh,
Is wrong.
Townhome.
Wrong,
Even
wrong.
in
Yeah.
Maricopa County, on the assessor site, when you look at, the type of home that it is, so many times it says a townhouse designation and it's clearly a condo. When you dig into public records, the last deed, and so we're looking for horizontal regime. We're looking for it to say condominium declaration. And then if those two things are not there, we're looking for a tip off of the unit or a lot. And so if we're not quite sure, we have an amazing condo desk. We have designated people to actually vet these things out for us. If there's any kind of question or there's some kind of, like in Sun City back in the 60s, a lot of those legals are very, very unclear, not updated. And so sometimes we have to, get those vetted out with the title company and further review, so it can take a bit of extra time, but those are the main things you want to look out for.
MLS, and maybe it's changed, but do they offer condo or townhouse when you're putting in a listing?
Yes.
They do. Yeah. But the majority of the time, it's wrong, as she said, because most of the time, agents think that townhome sounds better than condo.
Yeah.
So that they're gonna list it for that because it narrows the amount of available listings and it makes the property seem better. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what the property looks like or feels like, it's how the legal description is, and that's what's so hard. And we, by the way, we can email you guys these slides
Oh,
too.
this is perfect.
But yeah, I wanted Christy to talk a little bit about this, so.
Property regime, the
Yeah.
horizontal property regime we're looking for.
What does that mean though, horizontal regime?
So, it's basically, if you think about it, condos typically are vertical, right? So usually there's multiple going up versus townhomes are typically, there's nobody above it and they have the properties, their lot borders are horizontal rather than vertical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I own a condo in Central. The lower level have townhouses. I think we call them townhouses because the bedrooms are upstairs, and then above them there are 2-3 floors of one-level condos. So, but they're not townhouses then, right? They must be condos.
Yes.
How could you own the land? Because there's a condo above you, right?
I mean, that would be correct. We would have to look into the legal
Yeah.
description of
Legal,
your
yeah.
place,
Yeah.
which is tough, but this is, so I wanted to touch really quick, or have Christy touch on, does everyone know what a PUD is?
Kind of.
Unit development?
Yep,
Plan,
yeah.
yeah.
So do you wanna explain kind of what,
Please.
should we?
Confusing.
Okay, so this is where it's very confusing, and this might even confuse you more. So a townhome can either be a PUD or a condo, literally the way that the legal description reads. And then we look for a lot of other things, like Christy said, the legal will state lot instead of unit. So lot, again, refers to townhome because it's there's land with the actual physical ownership of the property, versus unit does not own any land with the physical property.
And the good news is we vet this out,
Yeah,
so this
so-
is not stuff that you guys necessarily
Need to
have
check,
to know
yeah.
or check, so the reason we,
Method for the lending, for the finance.
Oh, we're gonna get there, for sure.
right.
It does
Yeah.
matter.
It matters a whole lot.
And
There's a lot of deals that kind of get messed up because of the way it's not written properly, and the guidelines are different
Right.
depending on how it's classified on the legal description.
Lots of guidelines, and so, in the one, just to kind of backtrack a little bit on that is, you know, we do all this upfront vetting on our team when it comes to this. So if you have any of your clients looking at any kind of attached property whatsoever, we do an upfront review. There's things we have to vet once we're under contract. The budget, the litigation, the CCNRs, all that stuff that we have to actually contact the HOA for, get questionnaires filled out, review documents, and we, you know, that's not pre-vetted. But up front, you know, give us those property addresses and we can vet if it's a condo or a townhome. And at that point, we can assess with the client, you know, any additional down payment options, the change in the interest rate if it's a condo, there's a bit more of a pricing adjustment for a condo. So things that we vet on our end, nothing for you guys to be worried about when it comes to like looking up public records, but we do this on your behalf.
But it does matter if you have a buyer that's looking at multiple properties, right? So we can do this ahead of time even to let you know
Which one?
which one would be a better option potentially depending on their lending situation, their financial situation, and what guidelines we have for everyone.
Exactly,
has.
exactly.
I have a buyer that I'm dealing with right now with that. So is this saying a townhome can either be a PUD or a condo when you're looking it up in MLS? Or legally it can be a condo?
This means,
That has to be vetted with the condo desk.
Yeah.
99% of the time with the legal, with the regime, the condo, or the unit condo, otherwise it's a PUD townhome designation, most
so
of the time.
what we're referring to is what's in the MLS as a townhome can either be a PUD or a condo.
Right,
Okay.
And that, on the legal description. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the legal description will narrow it down
Yeah.
as to whether it's
So
a
here.
PUD or a condo, not and.
So here basically, so even if the property is attached to its neighbor and appears to be a condo, we always check the legal description to be sure. And often Maricopa County, as she said, even classifies it incorrectly off of the actual title deed.
right.
And that's what we refer back to. So that's why sometimes we have to check with the last deed of record,
Right.
to see legally what it is reported
I've
as.
seen that too. I've seen it in, Monsoon. It says condo, but they've got it listed as a townhouse, and I think they're an idiot because they can't even just read that. But maybe I'm the idiot.
No, and then
Yeah.
sometimes depending on how it's written in the legal, sometimes it's not clear. There
Yeah.
are three main things we're looking for. We would contact title and say, hey, can you dig into what your records show? So sometimes there's further digging, but not oftentimes does that happen. It's very rare there's a case where it's like, no one knows what it is. We don't know what it is. And our condo desk, so we vet these condos regularly, all the time, every day. We have a master list.
Of
These
every
gals are
complex,
amazing.
yeah.
And we have an actual gridded form of each condo, the address, and the warrant, when it expires. So let's say it's nice, if you have a client looking for a certain area, we can let you know, hey, in this zip code, I know for sure, because we just warranted 5 condos in this
These
area.
complexes
These ones
are
good to go.
approved.
We just did the approvals, we're good to go.
Approval for the financing.
Correct, for the financing, right.
Good question. The legal description in the tax records does not say it's a condo or townhouse. So I see the only way to find out is to look at the CCNR, right?
The CCNRs or the title, the deed of record, basically.
Title.
So, yeah. And that's where, this is where you can look it
It's in a
up
different
on,
spot, but it may not be correct.
yeah, the Maricopa County Assessor's website. You can look up, you know, either the parcel number or the address. It'll show you, you know, the most recent deed recorded as well as, you know, who recorded the deed. However, keep in mind, and I'm not trying to slam government agencies, but oftentimes there's mistakes. My last house I purchased, it was 11216, and they recorded it as 11218. Even though title, lending, everyone had that correct, but Maricopa County recorded it as 11218. So on Zillow, 11218 North 74th Street showed up, but my actual house didn't show up. So mistakes happen, even with single family, so you always do need to check, which is unfortunate. But, you know, they deal with a lot of things all the time, so something's gonna get missed. It's natural. But, so basically, look it up on the Maricopa County Recorder. That's a great first step. But if you have a client that is wanting to put in an offer, it's a great thing to check with the lender first.
Yeah,
It really
and we
is.
can vet that out. So if you
Yeah.
decide to go to the website, when you first click on that link and you put in that property address, it's gonna pull up a few boxes of information pieced out, compartmentalized. The very bottom box is where it shows like townhouse, condo, SFR. That's the part that's always wrong. You wanna go back up, look at the last warranty deed.
And you click
and
on
look-
it, it
look for the
opens
deed.
another link.
And that's what we do, so we're not asking you, we're letting you guys know this is what we do up front, but if you wanted to, get froggy and jump on it, you
Yeah.
could definitely look at the last deed, so never go off of just what that bottom, portion of the site mentions.
The actual deed will be correct.
Last deed.
Did you mention before I came in the difference between apartment and condo? What's apartment, what's the difference?
Apartment's a rental, it's owned by a rental company, and a condo is owned by individuals. So an apartment is usually managed, in their short-term or
Professionally
long-term
managed,
rentals, professionally managed for like an investment group or a large firm that owns, you know, apartment complexes all around the country, typically. So usually it's ownership, where they own the entire complex versus condos. It's never generally owned by one owner. It's rare that it is owned by one owner.
And kind of to piggyback on that, that's one of the things that we vet out up front, which is a nice segue actually.
Yeah.
The ownership, so when it comes to Fannie Mae, warrantable versus non-warrantable, one of the main things that makes a condo warrantable is to make sure that not one entity or one person owns a certain percentage of those units. So we vet that out, so we go into the public records and we can look at all the owners and we just do a quick calculation of how many people own how many of those units, how many units are there, and make sure that that can be something that is made an offer on. So we have to look at that as well.
So what that means is that if more than 50%, I think it's a 50% right now, or what's the actual
They
number?
just changed the rules, so Fannie Mae, as long as there's not more than one person that owns 20% or more of the units, we're good. Freddie Mac changed it to 25%. This is owner occupied. If someone's gonna buy a non-owner occupied condo, an investment home, 50% of those units have to be owner occupied.
So it's really confusing. And so that basically means that if more than 20% of the units, so let's say there's 100 units in the condo complex, if 22 are owned by the same one investor, nobody else can get financing to buy any of those other units.
Oh my God.
Because that one investor has made it so that, you know, it doesn't fit the national lending guidelines for that.
For the warrantable.
So that's what's really hard. And then not only does the ownership matter, but the owner occupied also matters, as Christy said. So it also matters of the remainder, how many actually live in them versus using them as investment properties. So there's a lot that goes into
So when
whether or
you
not
have-
financing is available at all for anyone, not just your buyer, but any buyers.
Right, so non-owner occupied purchases of a condo are something we need to pre-vet, you know, upfront. We all have to pre-vet those, but we do all this on your behalf,
And there's
so.
no way we could ever know any of this anyway.
No.
How many people own.
No, you can't.
And it's, who comes up with these guidelines as far as who can buy? The HOA of the.
No, it's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, so
Well,
it's
That's
national.
lending, but I mean, who comes up with the rules of how many people can buy within the condo community?
HOAs
Okay.
regulate that.
It is the HOAs.
Yeah.
I mean, cause the venue at Greyhawk, I've sold in there, lived in there one investor came in from Canada and like bought up.
Yeah, I
all
lost a
kinds-
deal,
No, but
because we didn't know that,
Yeah,
and it fell
all
apart at the
kinds
end.
in the venue,
She
so,
lost-
you know, that's, and my buyer didn't have any problem at that time, but then I just looked up one of the units and it says it's a condominium complex, yet the description says lot 2336. What does that mean?
Well,
It's,
we would have to look at the legal description for that property, so did you look it up on the county assessor?
No,
that
I
what-
was in Monsoon.
So yeah, look
So
it up
like,
on,
are the venue condos not condos, or are they townhomes?
I think what we're hearing is to be, the best agent you can be for your client, is to reach out to you guys
beforehand,
way in advance.
literally.
This is kind of
No.
our whole spiel
Yeah,
to
that's
let
what
you
it's
know
like,
this.
That's what it sounds like to me, it's
yeah.
a shortened version here.
So
Yeah.
pretty much, so you know, we'll go really quick over the Fannie Mae condo requirements. So and this just changed. So this, she just said it went up to 20%, right?
Right, it did. 20% just changed. Fannie, 25% is Freddie Mac, which is kind of nice. We've kind of opened up that box a little bit, which is kind of nice. We check the reserve. So there's things we cannot vet. So once you get under contract, we vet the remaining items. One is litigation. We have to make sure there's no litigation going
Against the
on. And the
complex.
main thing is structural. So a little story, a few months ago I had a client find a condo and there was some litigation that was found during process while under contract, and it's difficult because of the legal entities, they really can't sometimes provide any information, can't talk to us, can't tell you why. We ask the question, is it structural? Is something wrong with the structure? Can't tell you why. Few weeks have gone by because this client really wanted this condo. Turns out it was a matter of pigeon droppings. One of the homeowners was complaining about some pigeon droppings, an excessive amount of pigeon droppings on this balcony post, and it just became this big litigation. But because we were to prove with the documents from the legal entity and the HOA, this had nothing to do with the structural integrity of that condo, we were able to get it pushed through and finished up. So that's one thing, and that's a one-off, but these things do happen. We have to make sure the reserve of the budget, so 10% of the annual assessments have to be in reserves for that HOA. So a lot of the smaller unit condominium projects, because there's so many, not so many units, if there's any kind of delinquency, they can easily not have that, budget
In their
requirement
account.
that they need. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to look out for as well.
So there's a whole lot
Yeah,
that
there's a
goes
lot.
into it, and
There's a
we'll
lot.
send you these slides again. I'm gonna pop back to this though, FHA, because I know you guys had a question on this. Which ones are FHA approved? And basically HUD has an established list of approved, expired, and denied condos. And basically, in order for us or any other lender to initiate an FHA loan on a condo, it has to be on the approved list on this link at HUD. If it's not, there is nothing we can do, there's nothing any other lender can do. It's, our hands are completely tied.
So to piggy on that, so any government loan, FHA or VA, they each have their own list, this own website for each of them, and if that condo is not on that list, quite literally, it's a no-go. So if you have a client that you know that we've told you they're going FHA or they're going VA, before you show them anything on their portal, if possible, reach out to
Go to the
us
list,
with the
we'll get you the
we can
list.
get, so quite literally, you go to this link, you can just type in as little as possible. If you just type in the zip code, if you put in too much information, it gets jumbled. Just put in the zip code they're looking in, it'll give you literally the few condos that you can actually shop for and get financing on for that financing type. So if you know they're looking in, certain areas, we'll take certain zip codes, pop them in, and get you a list of the projects that they can obtain financing in. So it's easy for you guys to know, you're not wasting your
That
time.
way, yeah, you're not showing them properties that they wouldn't even be an option for them at all.
Yeah.
So that one, that's the link that everyone has to use. We'll send it to you guys so you have it too, but that's obviously our job to pull it for you.
Sure.
And then as far as VA goes, which obviously lending guidelines for VA are awesome, right? Because they don't have to put any money down, there's a lower required credit score, but similar list for VA in regards to condos. So there's a link there, and same thing that Christy said. So here she said search by the city rather than even the zip code. So go even broader, and it'll give you a list of all of the VA eligible condo,
Right.
project, or I guess communities in that city.
And we help vet this for
Yeah.
you as well. So this is also something just so you know condo is what we do on that front end search, but if it's, you know, Sunday at midnight, let's say, and you're going out first thing in the morning and you wanna say, oh, what can I shower? You know, if you wanna go ahead and go to the website, you have an idea of what is eligible, so it's a good tool to have.
It's great too, generally, you know, people are coming in from, if you have out-of-state buyers or snowbird buyers, they are gonna just, you know, not know this information. So they're gonna say, I wanna see these particular condo complexes that may not even be eligible for financing, so make sure to be aware of that if you have time to plan ahead. We already talked about this one. Hold on, yeah, this is a fun one. So we talked about it a bit, but you know, investor issues are often come up in condo complexes, especially with what we talked about where, I don't know what year it was, when 2005-06, where every apartment complex in town turned into condo complexes and the same investor groups bought like the majority of the apartment complexes. So that created a lot of issues with financing those condo units for potential buyers. So projects in which a single entity, which means the same individual, investor group, partnership, corporation, LLC, any common names at all, own more than, you know, as she mentioned, 20%
Fannie.
for Fannie and 25 for Freddie, you cannot get financing, period. But with 5 to 20 units, it's more than 2 units for the smaller condo complexes. If the same investor owns more than 2 units, it makes it ineligible for financing for the rest.
And
So
typically
that
we
doesn't
find that.
include then the developer, like the developer buys several units or owns several units, that would not be part of that consideration.
Well, so that kind of gets into the whole if it's new or established. So
Yeah.
if it's fully established and one entity does own, no matter who the entity is, that does count.
Okay.
When we're looking at, let's say, new build condo units, still under development, still under construction, there's a few things you have to make sure it's established. One, the HOA's been turned over. 2, 80% of those units are conveyed to homeowners, and that can include, there's some leeway on the actual developer owning some of those, as
If
long
they're
as
not sold yet.
correct, they're under contract, and even further, some investors will allow, if they have some of those that are owned that they have rented out themselves, we can kind of use that in that number. So we can definitely pre-vet that, but there are some things to look at when it comes, oh, and there's no more phasing. We have to make sure that phasing's complete, there's no more additional phasing to be done. So as long as everything is going to be completed, there's no more phasing allotted. So a few things to vet out with that.
Am I missing the obvious? What are the risks to the lender, and why do they have these guidelines?
Well, a lot of it is you just wanna make sure, you know, you would hate to lend on a collateral that doesn't get fully, you know, sold out, you know.
So the reason why is because of the crash, right? So there was all these investors that owned all these different investment properties and everyone foreclosed, and then look what happened to our economy, right? And
Yeah.
our housing market here. So it's basically to prevent that from happening again, to be honest, is
Yeah.
what it is, why the guidelines are there. And they're all national. So they, you know, no matter if you're a local lender, a national lender, a big bank, we all have the same regulations with it.
It's a risk, a
Yeah.
lot of risk. If you have, you know, 100 units and only Liz owns
40.
all of those units, what if
And I
she
go under,
goes under?
then the whole complex, like the HOA, everyone's
Oh, I
gonna have,
see,
yes.
because
Yeah.
then they pay most of the HOAs, then
Correct.
the HOA defaults.
Goes delinquent,
then
they
the
can't
community just starts to.
Then everyone
decline,
sues
and now
the
you're-
community for not
now
keeping
it's in
up.
jeopardy. Okay.
Yeah,
That
so
makes
that's
sense.
basically why. So it's all to protect against, you know, the aggressive lending
Community in
practices.
general.
Yeah,
They
well,
have to
our
keep-
whole, our communities, our whole,
Yeah.
you know, so that we don't have another issue where then everything's worth 40% of what we paid for it, you know, that's basically the issue.
Yeah, cause one condo or townhome is their value is directly affected to the one right next door
Correct.
in the community.
Right.
So if one owner had to foreclose or short sale all those, you know, it would affect everyone's property values, yeah.
Okay,
And
that makes sense.
potentially then, a lot of homeowners would immediately be upside down in their
Yeah.
loan because of
Yeah.
that delinquency, so that
Okay.
Puts the
is,
client in a very bad financial
Yeah.
position, yeah.
so,
Do you guys find that you see that a lot, where more than one owner owns more than 20% or more?
Not typically. I would say if I had to give a percentage or an amount, I would say maybe 6 or 7 times out of 10. And it's typically in the
That's a lot.
smaller, the
Mhm.
smaller units, you know.
Uh-huh.
If there's an investor that, you know, buy up just a few townhomes on the same, or condos the same.
15 unit
Cause they're
thing.
easy to keep, track of, we're all right here, I can go make one visit and check on my tenants, and, so we see that, sometimes, but it's not something it's quite often. I think the more, maybe I say, cause there's more condos being looked at right now because of the values,
Yeah.
increasing right now, and that $200,000 niche kind of,
I've seen it in
Threshold
private
is-
remarks though quite a bit lately of financing, you can't go FHA, cash only on this condo, I'm like,
Yeah, it's,
whoa.
so.
these are the reasons.
The HOAs really hate it now. So what HOAs are realizing is that in order for us to be able to keep this condo complex full, we have to have financing eligible,
Yeah.
right? So usually the HOAs now are not allowing that at all anymore, and so, but there's some where like the HOAs aren't very active and they don't really know what's going on, and then all of a sudden they buy one more and it puts them over the threshold,
Yeah.
so that's why, we really have to vet it out on our end, and so that you don't get to, under contract and then guess what, we can't give them financing.
Is there, how to find out the HOA delinquency? Is there a site, is there a way to find out?
No, we have to,
I
so
don't
that
know.
gets vetted after runner contract, so the things that we cannot vet up front, for example, would be that. So when it comes to the condo process, that, approval process for mortability, we send questionnaires, we have, we ask for the CCNRs, we ask for the budgets, all these things we have to get from them, which we can get once we're under contract. Then we can review all those items and go, okay, good, ooh, there's an issue here. And sometimes if there is a small budget reserve issue, let's say, hey, you're a few $1,000s short or whatever, is there a way you can,
We can get it in there.
can you make this work, with the next due collection, and, so it's something we cannot do up front, but we can look at some of the ownership, up front, some of the entity
Legal
ownership up front,
description.
legal.
Yeah.
This could have been a very good marketing tool when you see defaulting HOA defaulting condos, then you know that they may default it's really marketing tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If we have the way to find out.
There's not a way other than contacting every HOA pretty much
Yeah.
directly, so,
They are not giving out this information.
No.
Not that they would tell you.
No,
anyway.
they wouldn't.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we're in the
For
short
sure.
run.
yeah.
And one way to kind of get around some of this, so there's limited review. So if you have an owner-occupied purchase with a condo, if they place 10% or more down, we don't need to look into the occupancy, the budget, the fidelity
HOAs.
insurance. If you have a non-owner occupied purchase for a condo, if they place down 25% or more, we cannot have to worry about most of these items. So if you have someone who really wants this condo, this might be an issue, maybe we find it, during, underwriting when we get those items back. Ooh, but if they place down
More money.
we can just forego it. So
We can
there's
bypass some of those additional review items.
So there could be someone who's completely qualified, good credit score, has plenty of money, but you guys might not land on it because the HOA is in trouble?
Well, it depends on how much they're gonna put down, but otherwise, potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with the credit, it's just simply
Here.
collateral and guideline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not like everything's fine except for
Yeah.
HOA is not doing
Yeah.
as well as you guys.
Or the
do.
litigation with HOA, so as she
Right.
said, if like the actual condo complex is being sued by one of the homeowners for whatever issue it could be, that we may not, our hands could be tied, depending on what it
I
is.
have one closing today, but they just went through a lawsuit with the builder. It's settled, but that wouldn't have been a red flag.
Probably behind the scenes, maybe if they knew it was going to be settled, maybe
Yeah.
it wasn't something structural.
Or
If
if it
it's
was
not
already
structural,
settled. and-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's really just, does it affect, as she said, or does it
Yeah.
affect the integrity of the actual properties? If it's
Right.
usually people sue over common area stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's like our pools, the deck is chipping, or like
Because
my
that's
kid
what always
tripped
happened
on
with
it.
Structural, like the,
You know?
the stucco would push in, they didn't wait long enough for it to set.
Oh,
So they had like $1 million lawsuit.
Oh my goodness.
see, and
Wow.
things
But
like
it's
that
closing
happen,
today.
yeah,
Wow,
things
not
like that
bad.
happen, so, yeah.
So yeah, structural based lawsuits, as she said, are an automatic issue. It does pose a huge red flag for underwriting anytime there's lawsuits against that, condo complex. And yeah, non-monetary litigation is sometimes acceptable, as she mentioned, depending on the circumstances. So if it's just like they wanted them to clean up the pigeon droppings,
Yeah,
not I need money to fix my property type lawsuits. So, so neighbor disputes, this is one, like depending on if one neighbor painted their house a different a color that's not approved by the HOA, those kind of things, oftentimes we can get around those. Let's see what else is next. Oh, here we go. So
Here, I went over this just here, so, the owner occupied purchase, 10% down or more, limited review, and then the second home non-owner op, 25% down or more, we can go ahead and omit most of this stuff. So, and there's also non-mortgable condo programs out that we do offer. So most oftentimes we find there's something that's non-mortgable for the reasons we spoke about before. There are some programs where they place things more money down, 20, 25% or more. Their FICO has to be a certain range. Their income to debt ratios, it's a bit more strict, typically 43. The rates can be 1 to 2% higher than market. So there are, if somebody really wants a condo, it's not mortgable, they're willing to place more money down, we can vet out, they have those thresholds we require, they can be done. A bit more of a cost with the rate and their down payment. Non-owner occupied, with those, we have to make sure we vet out reserves. It's a big one. So when it comes to the primary home they own, typically it's 6 to 12 months of reserves on their primary home's PITIA, and then there's a percentage of the unpaid principal balance on their other REO they own. It's our calc that we do, so if your borrower is a strong borrower, they have asset reserves after closing, money down, good FICOs, low DTIs, sometimes we can get those non-mortgable condos financed.
that makes sense to everyone, or is that too much lender speak? Do we need to break it down a little more?
I just wonder, would you ever advise a buyer not to buy it based on some of those things? Like, I don't know, is it ever a risk for that? I mean, obviously they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but is it our job to like kind of warn them of risks? Is there a
Well, we
risk involved
educate them on why it's not mortgable. We'll let them know here's, so many of these units are occupied by an investor, one person. Here's, what could potentially happen. We educate, we don't like to advise too much on what they
Should do necessarily.
but we give the information so they can see,
Our team, like our whole, I guess, kind of motto or thing that we really try to live by is over-educate. We want to give them as much information as possible so that they can make the best decision for their self, for their financial situation. But we always present information in a positive way, regardless. Because it's like, we want to keep deals going, right? Just like you guys do. But we need to make sure, it's our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they have all the information to make an informed decision. So, Allison, you have your hand up. Sorry, we didn't.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah.
I was just gonna share, so I worked for a home builder in California, and I ended up, I purchased a townhome from them a year before I went to work for them. But when we went to sell it, we were coming up on the 10-year builder warranty, and of course, there was a lawyer circling around with constructiondefects.com. They
Wow.
came in to, look for problems, because not all of these things, certainly there are issues where they need to be addressed, but, we had, it was around Thanksgiving, my ex-husband and I knew we were gonna put the house on the market, and, the light went out in the second bedroom, and when we went to pull it down, there was water in the light. And it turned out it was a fire sprinkler leak, but because they were already circling, they ended up walking around with the HOA police guy, because there's always one in the HOA.
Totally.
And the lawyer came in while my ex-husband was looking for jobs and just walked the guy right up, and we're like, no, this is an HOA issue, this is not litigation. So what we had to do was, because litigation was not yet pending, but potential, we disclosed that, but I worked for the builder, so I was able to attest that the builder was in fact gonna resolve everything. So it was, those are issues that arise in new home developments, especially when in California there's this 10-year construction
Crazy, the permitting process thing, yeah.
So, I don't know, I just wanted to share that, that's an example of, it wasn't steering, but it was able to go, hey, this is actually a reputable builder, they're gonna address this.
Take care of it, yeah.
It's not gonna be
So people actually target, it's been almost
Oh,
10 years of that
yep,
builder,
exactly.
so they go
Oh,
around, right, with that.
constructiondefects.com.
Isn't it?
Constructiondefects.com, and I was like,
It's
that's
like
a
the
word that-
ambulance chaser
Oh,
people,
totally.
you know, it's sad, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but
Huh.
somebody makes a lot of money off it, right?
And in fairness, I mean, there are issues with builders, and so there's a reason that some of this is in play, but at the same time, there are ambulance chasers trying to make it worse.
Yeah.
I realized we didn't get a sign-in sheet for me to send to you
Sorry,
guys.
Here.
Oh, it is, okay, do we have it? Can everyone sign in so I can send it to you? The
You
thing.
can get,
Yeah, we're not quite done, I just was gonna do it when we finish up to make sure I could send you guys these, so you have them all, that way I know it's hard to take notes of all this. So we have a couple more slides, and then we'll just make sure we address these questions. So I'm gonna let Christy really quickly go over our process that we do at VIP with our condo desk, and how I know other lenders do similar things but don't have like a dedicated condo desk. So she's gonna quickly talk about that.
Yeah, so I'll just do our upfront process, just whether it's a condo or not. We complete a discovery call. Your clients come to us, and it's not a loan application. It's not just date of birth, social, what's your FICO, here you go. We go in depth about every part of their application. If you're self-employed, we vet out, are you Schedule C? Do you have business entities? Do you have K1s? You know, we vet all these questions out, make sure they can obtain financing. It's a very good in-depth process. After we're done, we email you a quick little update of kind of a green light, yellow light, red light. You know, they're good to go. Pen these few moving pieces if you're okay with knowing they're self-employed. Here's their verbal income, but here's their sales price thresholds. They're looking for a single-family home, looking for a condo. They're FHA, they're conventional. They have gift funds, they're putting so much % down, so you can kind of narrow your search down to what you're doing with your clients and the property types. And then contract comes in.
Can I interrupt you?
Oh, yeah, please.
Sorry. So with that, I think it's super important. The discovery call for us, Christy came from an underwriting and processing background, so she can basically see potential problems from what the client is telling us. So our goal is to make sure that when we issue a pre-qual, it's completely bulletproof. A lot of, especially, you know, I hate to say it, but like the big banks and the online lenders, you can fill out a loan app in 3 minutes, right? You enter in some basic info, they give them a conditional approval, you get under contract, and then guess what? It's 2 weeks before closing, and you can't close because they didn't get enough information. So we really spend, like her average discovery calls are 30 to 45 minutes, making sure we have a really good understanding of their entire situation, and making sure that they're comfortable. We view it as like the first date. Like we want to make sure that they like us, they're comfortable with us, because the more comfortable they are, the easier the whole transaction will go for everyone. But with that, you know, if they answer yes, instead of it just being move on to the next question, she asks like 3 more questions, or if, you know, depending on the circumstances, if they are self-employed or whatever. But with the goal is that if we issue a pre-qual, we close 100% of the time. That's our thing, is we do enough upfront research, basically, so that there shouldn't be any problems unless they simply didn't tell the truth or didn't disclose something to us in the discovery.
Never.
Right, oh.
Yeah.
And we do get a lot of, quite a bit of fallout from some of these bigger banks, some of these bigger box online lenders, because things just simply weren't vetted properly. Case in point, I have a client who there's a judgment on their credit report, and the lender had them go through on a conventional finance loan, which on conventional, those have to be paid in full. But with an FHA finance loan, if you have 3 months of on-time payments to that civil judgment, we can proceed getting the ledgers, the on-time payments, and that lender not only had to deny them last minute at closing, it was like the day before closing, because the underwriter finally saw the package. I'm like, how is this even possible? They didn't even know the guidelines well enough till they could do a quick flip to FHA, so we grabbed it.
They just denied them.
Yeah, so we
The day
grabbed
before
it,
closing.
you know, the agent was like, can you help us? And I'm like, you just sent to us.
Come on over.
Come on over. So there's some things to kind of piggy on what we ask about when I look at the credit report. I'm not looking at just the FICO score and moving on. I'm looking at the derogatory section. Are there civil judgments? I'm looking at, you know, we have a great analyzer tool. So let's say they have a great score. They have a good score, great score, but I can tell with how much they can boost you. If I boost them a few additional points by paying on a credit card, they can get a better rate. I can say, hey, listen, you know, if you just do this, you can get a better rate. So our discovery call is so in-depth, it's so educational. Our goal is to present everything to the point that they never have to ask us a question,
Yeah.
quite literally.
And the goal is oftentimes too, they don't understand what their options are, right?
Right.
So they come and they think that they have to put 20% down and that limits them to this potential purchase price. But it's like, you don't. So depending on what their financial goals are, we can show them the cash recovery for that, depending on whatever, So we can show them that if they only put 10% down, they can increase their purchase price by this much. And long term, keep that extra cash. So there's lots of stuff we can.
And to tie into the condo,
Yeah.
I had a client, so VA, for example, because we know with VA or FHA, they're
Yeah.
very, very limited, and this client wanted this condo. And just because of other reasons, he was placing like 20-25% down. So I advised, and his previous lender, they couldn't find a condo, and I said, well, VA is great if you have no down payment. They just don't require a down payment. So if you're looking for a condo and you're placing 20% down, using VA, that doesn't make any sense. Let's just go conventional, and you're open to everything.
Yeah.
So it was simple things that I think, gosh, why didn't I ever?
Well, and it's hard because, she has 17 years of experience doing this, that a lot of people just, if they don't do a lot of condos, they miss them, unfortunately.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And if someone wants a VA and for some reason they can't make it work, we can flip it to a down payment assistance program. Works quite the same, but maybe there's certain guidelines that make that work better than going with a VA. So there's so many niche products we have, and the experience myself, Stuart, Brianna have to finagle something to where this makes more sense. So sometimes a client thinks, I want an FHA loan because I heard this, or I want a conventional because I heard this. But we do some comparisons, and it's, might make more sense to go with a different financing option for certain reasons, whether it's a FICO score, down payment, whatever option it is.
Doesn't everyone have the same products though? It's just a matter of whether they know them.
No.
Yeah.
A lot of times, yes. A lot of us have the same
Well,
products.
I know brokers probably have more than.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess that's a yes and no question, depending on, but yeah.
Well, because guidelines change all the time, and we keep up on those guidelines, and we know our products in and out. So there's certain things that, you think, oh, this isn't going to work this way, but oh, you know what, this product. So it's a matter of both, to be honest.
And I think, resources too. So our condo desk is hugely helpful. So they assist a lot in the process. So they basically, I put this slide up here. So once we have a contract, they request from the HOA all the questionnaires, insurance information. They want to see how much money they have in reserves. They request all that stuff immediately when we get a contract, so that we'll know, within a day or two, if there's going to be a potential problem before it's, 2 weeks in, when now your buyer already thinks that this is going to work.
They've already paid for an inspection.
Exactly, yeah. So, and then basically they make sure it meets, Fannie Mae or Freddie guidelines depending on what the requirements are, and then we review everything internally with the exception of jumbo products. So it's all in-house, or in our corporate office on Via David on the 101, so Christy can walk down if she has questions. It's a lot easier than waiting days from call center type situations, so that helps a lot too.
I just see, this isn't a condo thing, but did jumbo just jump up to like 7 something?
It just jumped up.
450.
I saw something about conforming loan at 7.
483 or something.
4350.
It won't be till January. It's 2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they just announced
And
it
we
last
have
week.
a lot of our investors who are already on board, so we can accommodate those contracts. I think as of this week with those 30 vehicles of escrow. So right now
To close after
Yeah.
January
I
1st.
saw
Yeah.
something
Is it
about
true to
conforming
all-
at 700
Down
plus.
payment systems have prepayment penalties now?
So typically, it's more of a marriage to the loan.
Yeah.
So basically, when it
On the
comes
slide
to
it's
yeah. So with the Home and 5, the Home Plus, it's a 3-year marriage to the loan. So if they sell that home or refinance out of that product before 3 years of payments have been made, depending how much assistance they received on a sliding scale, they'll have to owe back that at either loan closing with the proceeds or the refinance. They have to pay that. The pathway to purchase, they require, I believe it's 5 years in that loan product, and if you sell or refi, you owe the
the
whole
whole
entire thing back. That's a very, and we educate on those as well, so, and we provide all of those products as well, but we make sure our clients know there's a home buyer education class, the marriage to the loan, there's a posted rate, it's a
I
very
wonder
high
if some
rate.
people just forget too, cause even though they know, but.
Definitely, life happens, right?
Yeah.
You get married, you have kids, you switch jobs, and then you don't remember what happened,
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, you're exactly right. So that would be a great thing, if you put somebody into one of those products, or if you put somebody in a home using down payment assistance, that's a great, on your annual review call, great thing to remind them of, So that's definitely something that you guys could help with, and we help with, obviously, if they call us with any questions, we always remind them of that too.
Okay.
Okay, so lastly, make sure, have a lender that you feel confident in, that knows this stuff, first and foremost. If you don't have one, we would love to be an option for you guys. We do a lot of condo business, and our condo desk, I think, is amazing. I had a lady from Nova call me, and they're a great company, I love Nova too, but call me to ask a question from our condo department, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, this shows me that I work for a good company. So make sure you have a good one. Our team, Stuart Crawford created the team. There's 6 of us now, but we're top 1% in the country. We're like number 8 in the state right now, and we do a lot of business. And the thing we're most proud of is we really pride ourselves on customer service. We have all 5-star reviews everywhere on all of the review sites. We don't pay people. We don't do anything. That's really just happy clients. So those are our sites if you have any questions. We will send you the slide, and I just want to make sure quickly that we touched on all these. So we talked about FHA approved. So we talked about HOA fees. So what was the specific question? How to find out what the HOA fees are?
See, you have a condo here, and then you have a condo in another complex. The HOA fees are far apart. What's the reason? I mean, it's the same size of condo. In this complex, it's 300. The other one is 450. So,
a lot of it is the amenities.
Amenities,
you
for
know,
sure.
What they
maybe
cover.
one
like
that's just
history, bad history, or something.
And it could be, a lot of times it's upcoming potential
Assessments.
improvements or assessments. So if they know that in 3 years they're going to be redoing the pool, they are going to start charging people years ahead for renovations that are planned 5 years down the road even. So that can affect condo HOA fees
Some include water,
significantly.
sewer, and trash too.
That's true. Yeah. If they maintain like roads within it, that often can be one where it's a lot more, or landscaping in common areas. There's a lot of reasons.
Somebody sued HOA, and the lawyer's fees are paid by the.
Oh yeah, that's true, and that would come out of the reserves that the HOA has. So that's where, if there was litigation that they had to pay off the settlement, that could deplete their reserves under that 10% too. So that was another reason why you have to have somebody good. So 2 HOAs, we don't see that very often.
It's not very often.
I've seen it recently because I'm looking for stuff like this, but yeah, because I know you've got the master one, and then you've got the little one within them. I just seems
It's like
stupid, but
DC Ranch.
Well,
Yeah, I was gonna say there's only a couple.
McCormick Ranch,
Like
DC
McCormick
Ranch,
Ranch,
Dobson
and then they have
Ranch,
all
all
the
the ranch.
extra ones.
Well, I was gonna
especially McCormick
say,
Ranch.
those
Tatum
are-
Ranch has some that are.
Well, those are the land leases too, oftentimes.
Yeah, there's.
So the
one.
first one is the land lease, and the second one is the HOA. Is what those specific ones are.
McCormick Ranch, McCormick Ranch has a master and then like a condo community one.
So I know like
And some
Jamie
have land lease
has a
too.
land lease,
Yeah,
some of
those
McCormick
are-
has a land lease, so generally that's what the more expensive one is, and then the lesser one is actually to keep up the amenities, so. But, we always can, tell the person that, too, so we find that out.
Is there any restrictions around land lease and lending with that?
There are some,
Yeah.
so, and we rarely see that, but
A
if
land
you do
lease
have
or
that,
like not being able to approve someone because of a land lease?
right, typically,
Oh.
yeah, so if you encounter that, we can get that vetted out and, the guides for that, but.
CCNRs we talked about a lot. I mean, the reason why there's a lot of CCNR issues is because they're this long, right?
I don't read them, yeah.
So nobody reads them, and it is really difficult to go through them, and they're in legal speak, so people don't understand them when they do read them. So CCNRs are a challenge, but obviously they're part of our world that we all have to deal with. Any other questions on about checking CCNRs? Was that a question? Somebody had? No? Okay. problems, we talked about a lot of potential problems. We talked about owner occupied versus non-owner occupied or rental situations. We didn't really talk about condo conversions, so, I don't know the process for how to convert an apartment complex to a condo, do you?
The process, I don't
Yeah.
know the process.
Yeah, we know the lending guidelines
Yeah.
once it's converted,
Yeah,
but, I don't know. I would assume that it's investment companies, you know, big investment companies that buy them up. New build buyers, how to protect yourself in those situations is you need to ultimately try to go with your buyer to the new build community the first time. If not, if you know that they are going to be shopping new build communities, try to call the community ahead and tell them that this is your client and they're going to be stopping by to tour the model or whatever it is. If they've gone and they call you and they're like, oh, we were driving around and we stopped in here, call immediately as soon as you can to the condo, or to the community to say that, you know, my buyer stopped in, they weren't aware that they needed to notify you that they have an agent. If you have you need to have a buyer broker, so that's another reason to use a buyer broker. If you don't and call after the fact, it is extremely hard to get commission for that unless you have like written documentation that you've been shown in similar properties. So, buyer broker, you're totally safe. But ultimately, you should be the one notifying the community if possible, not your buyer.
Would
and
they
if
give
you
you a copy of their contract up front so you could read it?
If you request it, yeah, definitely. And a lot of times too, with those, they usually have their own in-house financing, right? And sometimes they're good people, and sometimes they're not so good. You know, just like there's great agents, there's not so great agents, there's great lenders, there's not so great lenders. So I would ask some questions and ask about timelines and ask all those type of things. We had one recently where they were a past client of ours and they declined the in-house financing even though there was all these incentives offered because they didn't think that it was going to close on time with that potential lender. So, and they were more concerned about timelines for moving. So just, you know, that's another thing to keep in mind. They always really try to steer towards an in-house lender, but if you have somebody who you love and have a great experience with and know that they're going to take care of your buyers, I would encourage them to at least talk to both. Oftentimes, whatever incentives that they offer are added in rate or fees behind the scenes, so it can work out being the same or less with a different lender. Yeah. Because there's usually costs for the lender to be partnered with the community, so it all gets padded in somewhere. So that's where sometimes it's a great idea to get a second option for them.
So going back to the condo thing, so my buyer's looking for a townhouse, so I need to make sure that even though it says townhouse, that it's not a condo.
Correct.
correct.
And if it's a townhouse, I don't have to worry about all this other crap.
Correct.
Like,
She
this
does
is-
not even know the
I
difference
was
between
gonna
a
say, does
townhouse
it
and a
even
condo,
matter?
though, I would educate her and say, I mean, I don't.
And if it was my client, I would just say, give me the addresses, I'll just let you know, I'll let it
Yeah.
out.
So that's what, like we do. Anyone who tells us that they're looking at condos or townhomes, we offer for them to send us any addresses ahead of time, and we can obviously check if they're eligible, and then secondary, after checking if they're eligible, provide them with what, you know, their payments potentially would be like.
Yeah.
So the different fees and things like that. So we can give that to them up front before they even decide if they would want to make an offer.
And the entity count, I was gonna take first
yeah.
to make sure they can make an offer. Sometimes, you know, everything vets out, but, you know, if they didn't check the entity count, you know, we get into contract and then you find out underwriting, oh, 20 units are owned and they can't do this. And so they're stuck with, you know, being out of their inspection period and they've got to have to place more down and, you know, go through an unwarrantable product or breach the contract and cancel. So, you know, we vet these very thoroughly up front, so it's very important.
It saves us a lot of time and you a lot of time. In the long run, we always take more work up front, which sometimes it doesn't turn into a contract, but you know, we feel that regardless, the better we take the time up front, the better it's going to be down the road. And if it doesn't turn into a contract on that property, we know that client's going to come back to us because we did such a great job with them. So.
And for you guys, you know, being
Yeah.
in the car, you know, driving around showing people all these places that may not even be able to, you know, have an offer placed, that's a lot of time wasted, so.
So we are here for you if you need us.
So who do we contact out of all those people?
So we have a team email and a team phone number. super easy, we can write them down,
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
that's the best way, cause it routes to all of us, and then who's ever can do the call right away jumps on it, so Crawford team,
Yes, I've done 4.
You're gonna send us.
yes, yeah, I sure will, so Crawford team at VIPMTGINC.com. And then the phone number is 480-776-2954,
Is
and
it on
that's,
your business cards?
it is, well, we're changing our business cards to have it be more the team stuff. We all had our own individually, and now we're routing it so that we can then funnel it on our end.
For ease,
Yeah.
yeah, so that hits, that one email hits all of us.
All of it, yeah.
And
Okay,
whoever
come
is
to
on,
the
will grab
VIP,
whatever
at
is-
VIP what?
VIP MTG for mortgage, INC.com. Yeah,
Your name's Christy?
yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
With a
Christy's
Y?
amazing. She sits here on Wednesdays with me,
yes.
and she's, yeah, unbelievable.
See.
I don't know for me.
Yeah, so I'll send you guys this. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I'll send you this, and if you have any questions, let us know. And I'm next. If you want to do a business plan, hang on back. Yes.
Okay,